All right. So we're well into 2024 now, and I'm finally getting this video out. But I'd have to say, I was looking back at 2023, and I mean, there was a lot of developments made. There was a lot of milestones, and the bar was definitely raised, right? Especially in like the hobbyist and kit, side market of it. And I'm splitting them into two here. There's the hobbyist kit, and then there's the industrial side. There's a whole middle section there, but we'll get into that later. But at least, from what we've seen in the printers coming out, there was a lot of major breakthroughs. And well, let's take a look real quick. Let's take a look back at 2023. So there were some 3D printers out there that really made some huge strides, right? Mainly when you take a look at Bamboo Lab, they came out with the X1 carbon, and later with the P1 series, and they just took the market by storm, right? I mean, you look at these printers and they're Core XY, they're super fast. It has, help with the X1 anyway, it has the LiDAR and all the automatic calibration. I mean, you just let it do its thing and you're printing within 15 minutes out of the box. But they just print well, right? And they really raised the bar. And actually there's, and of course, a lot of companies followed suit. And when you look at some of the printers out there now, from like the Creality, the K1, there's KD Tech came out with one, Flash Forge, and there's I'm sure there's 2, 3, or 4 others out there that I'm drawing a blank on right now. But these companies are coming out with very similar printers. They're the Core XYs. They're really fast. They're enclosed. I mean, and some have larger form factors like the K1 Max now, and KD Tech, one of their models is pretty huge, larger than what Bamboo Lab has. But that being said, I mean, I'd have to say, 2023 was, I guess it's the year of the speed printer, right? It's they really raised the bar on that. And now they also came out with their AMS, right? So now it holds what, 4 spools, and you can daisy chain them for, up to 4 of them. So you'd have 16 colors. You can print multiple color printing with ease. Now they have some quirks about it, about the amount of waste on the filament poop as it switches from spool to spool. It seems like there was a lot of it coming out, and in some cases, when you're doing a lot of colors on every layer as it keeps building up, all of a sudden you look back and there's more waste than there is put into the actual part. But you can make adjustments to it and all that good stuff. But that was a pretty major product in itself, right? That came out with the X1 carbon. And and at this point, I know I can think of a couple of different companies that are coming out with their own version. I think one has 4 spools and one up to 7, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't think they've hit the market yet. If not, I think they're going to be pretty soon this year. But yeah, so I'd have to say that was a pretty major breakthrough. Now, a lot of these printers, they're made to, they're touting that that you can be printing within 15 minutes out of the box. They just take it out, do all the prep work or whatever, taking off safety tabs and links and whatnot, and you're printing. Now, this plug and play printing type like this, it's attracting a huge market of guys and girls, that just want to print, right? They don't want to get it in kit form. They don't want to have to build it. They don't want to have to manually calibrate or manually upgrade, manually add this and that. They don't want to work on the printer. They want to concentrate on actual printing something. They're they're focused on the design of their object, right? Not on the machine. Now, from years back, I actually enjoyed that. I mean, that was, I can see, that was a hobby. And it was a little side note for me. I've been dealing with them for years and years and years. I think I got my first kit, what was it, in 2005 or so? Somewhere in there. But I liked it. I mean, I like getting out there and doing upgrades and stuff like that. But anyway, I even built one myself after after all the years. But that's a different story. But then again, but I'm a mechanical engineer. 30 plus years, and it's in my blood, so I like it. But there's a lot of other guys out there that don't want to go in that direction. They want to, like I said, they just want it to work, right? And that's kind of the same thing on the industrial side. When you get an industrial printer, it just has to work. You can't spend time repairing it or having to go through upgrades, this and that. And just with routine maintenance, just like any other machine tool, you have to have it working to make it cost effective, right? And now they're doing it with the hobbyist side. But I guess after looking at 2023 with the major breakthroughs, it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen in 2024, right? And what was kind of interesting, if you ever pay attention to the Consumer Electronics Show, this year there was only a handful of 3D printers that showed up, the companies, right? There wasn't that many at the Consumer Electronics Show, which is huge, of course. But I guess the short list, I have a list here. There's a short list of some of the companies that were there, and Form Labs, I think they had one of the bigger booths out there showing their products. There was Gufu printers, which I've never heard of. Maybe they're not in the U.S. market. Maybe they're in China and Asia and maybe in Europe. Who knows? But it looks like they had a whole range from small, up to industrial size printers. And there was Kokoni, and it looks like most of their products, they seem like the real small beginner entry-level printers. Something that you'd want a kid to learn on, right? But they also have a Kickstarter out there, and it's for a fast speed printer. It's an inverted design, saying that it's not a resin, but it's upside down and it's printing on the bottom, right? It's an inverted design, and they had their own version of a 7-color, for 7-color spool holding for printing. And from what I understand, that it was just there; it wasn't working at the time. And the inverted design, I've heard of that in the past from some guy developing it and whatnot. But is there really a demand for that? How popular is that inverted demand going to be? Because I'd have to see it, because I don't see the benefit of having it upside down and printing that way. But we'll see. Hopefully we'll hit the market, and we'll see if it's going to be a big breakthrough, But and of course, moving on, there was that was just my opinion, but there was Creality was there, and they had their Surmoon D3 Pro, and I think that was a dual extruder on it. They had the new K1 series, I believe it was the K1 Max, and a K1 Max and a K1 Carbon, I believe. and then they had a new Ender 3, another Ender 3, V3 or something. So actually there was nothing really huge. There was nothing that was really groundbreaking technology shown at the CES, and very few companies. But you know, it makes you wonder why was such a big change or lack of change at the CES. Now, I read an article that was actually blaming the CES for the lack of the 3D printers. Let's see. They were saying that the CES, it was not worth going to. And here's some quotes here. So the decrease in 3D printing exhibitors does not seem to reflect trends in the industry. According to a recent report from market intelligence firm Context, so this guy is, he's referencing this info from Context, which looks pretty legit. From the market intelligence firm Context, Q2 of 2023 saw a 12% unit shipment increase and a 22% year-over-year system revenue growth in the personal and kit and hobby 3D printers. And this growth has been driven by the emergence of desktop 3D printers, manufacturers like AnchorMake and Bamboo Lab, which the latter taking the personal 3D market by storm, according to Context. Well, the first thing to note, that they're quoting this stuff from Context, but this was Q2 of 2023, so it doesn't even cover the rest of the year. And keep in mind at that time, that 2023, you know, they had a lot more exhibitors back then. But just look at, you know, their data is not up to date. And yeah, so I want to see the numbers for the rest of 2023. And I'm sure those numbers are probably grown, and they did great compared to 2022, right? You know, the year over year. But he goes on to say, let's see, the expo has drawn criticism from within the tech industry and is sometimes characterized as gimmicky. The fact that the CES 2024 is held in Las Vegas does little to foster an image of a serious industry and application-focused technology expo. I totally disagree with that. What is he saying? That Las Vegas does little to foster an image of a serious industry? Are you kidding? The CES is the largest, one of the largest trade shows in the world, if not the largest. It's been going on for years and years and years and years, right? Therefore, the limited 3D printing presence is a reflection on CES itself, suggesting that exposure on the show floor doesn't justify the exhibiting fees. I just can't believe he said that. The limited 3D printing presence is a reflection on CES itself. Yeah, that's unbelievable. I'd have to say that the CES is a great place to showcase new technologies. That's what it's there for, right? And I don't see how he focused on the 3D printing industry being, you know, are they the only ones that is everybody starting to pull out of the CES? I don't think so. It is huge. Well, all right. So how many of you guys out there go to the CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas, either go to it or follow it, or you just like to see all the latest and greatest gadgets and toys and just all the new technologies that are out there? Well, that's what the Consumer Electronics Show does. It's held out in Vegas every year, in January actually, and it's one of the biggest trade shows in the world, right? I mean, I forget how many square miles or whatever, however they rate it. It's just about in every venue out there. And you could be there for a week and still not see everything, right? It's one of those things. And business-wise, it's something that if you have something, you go out there. A lot of companies do this, and you know, going to this one show could set you up for the rest of the year, right? A A lot of times it's an opportunity if you want to partner with somebody, you want to showcase your new invention, or you're trying to get some investments in, some badly needed investments to continue your project or launch your company, whatever it is. I mean, you can do it all there, right? So, and actually in the past, this was back 2005, 2006, 2007. That's back when I was doing product development in the electronics industry and in consumer electronics and a bunch of other stuff. But I came out with some, patented products. I came out, submitted in, and actually started winning some innovation awards, right? I won in 2005, 2006, and 2007, and that includes the best of innovations in 2006. So I had a blast out there, and yes, I still follow the CES. One of these days I'm going to go back. I haven't been back in a long time. If you ever get the chance, it's a good time. It's a good time to be at the CES, right? Or in Vegas, right? I guess when you're looking and why is there such a lack of printers at the CES? And in my opinion, I just don't think there's going to be some major breakthroughs presented in 2024. 2023 was a huge year, and I think 2024 is just going to be taking the technologies and maturing them, right? And I don't think there's going to be any major breakthroughs like Bamboo Lab did in 2023. I don't think anybody's going to come out with anything like that in 2024. Now we'll see a lot of new models coming out, of course, a lot of new printers, and that's just because these companies are fulfilling their product roadmaps, right? Stuff that has been planned for 5 years running. and while they, hopefully it's not going to be a lot like I guess Creality, they keep coming out. I mean, how many Ender 3s are there now? They have so many different versions of it, and year over year, I don't know how many they introduce, but anything groundbreaking yet? That's questionable. It'll be interesting to see what Bamboo Lab has coming out because I think they're calling it their new flagship printer for 2024, and it's coming out in early February, so it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. And just like with cameras, 3D printing and additive manufacturing, they have their own industry-specific trade shows. It's like the Formnext, right? And at Formnext, they have, both industrial, used to be mainly industrial, if I'm not mistaken, and then a lot of, some of the larger consumer brands. And I did not go to it, but I'm curious now. It's like, well, because it was just a few months ago, right, when they had the Formnext, and was there any groundbreaking technology shown there either? I don't know. So I just think the hobbyist side it'll grow somewhat, but not like it did in 2023. So on the other hand, let's take a look at the other side. And I say other side, let's take a look at the industrial side of additive manufacturing. So there are a lot of the major manufacturers, in different industries, in automotive, aircraft, and some of the big guys, and they're adopting additive manufacturing and 3D printing, but I don't think it was at as fast a rate as was hoping for, from these printer manufacturers. There's a lot of manufacturers out there that are out there pumping out a lot of printers, a lot of equipment, and they're trying to do all this, proprietary printers and proprietary, filaments, and really jockeying for position, right? And but I don't think it was happening as fast as they were wanting. If you look at their stock prices, they're just a lot of them. Even some of the bigger guys, the well-known guys, they're their stock has been tanking. And some of these companies, there's quite a few of them now. And what we saw, I guess it was around March of 2023, there were four that comes to mind, when they're jockeying for position and they're starting to try to acquire each other, trying to consolidate, and they're just bouncing back and forth, and nothing's happened. In one point it was the board of directors, and they were really trying to get their investors going, yeah, let's acquire this company, it's the thing to do. But the investors said no way. They voted against it. So it didn't happen. I guess some of them. Let's see, Nano Dimension's one of them, and I think. Let's see, Nano Dimension. There was Stratasys. Everybody's heard of them. They've been involved in this. Desktop Metal and 3D Systems. And at one point, I think it was Stratasys trying to buy out Desktop Material, and it was nixed. Now Nano Dimensions trying to buy out Stratasys. It's just going and bouncing around, right? And if you ask me, some of these companies, they went public, using the SPAC, the SPAC, that Special Purpose Acquisition Company. And when they do that and they merge with them, it just speeds up the IPO process, right? Instead of having to go through all the added paperwork and whatnot, well, they're able to join forces, and they're public, almost right away. And if you ask me, I don't think a lot of these companies probably would have been better off if they didn't go public so soon, because now they're under the radar. They're having to please Wall Street, and they're having to please investors on a quarterly basis, right? They look at you quarterly, year over year, and they just really put you through the ringer. So now these companies are really focused on the short term, not the long term. And they started pumping out printers like mad, trying to, like I said, jockeying for position and get some sales going. Well, the revenue was down, and they were just pumping out these machines, but nothing was happening, right? So I think that's something that's going to happen in 2024. We'll probably see a lot more industry consolidation going on, because there's a lot of it going on now. When you start looking through the news, if you start following, like I said, between those four, there's been a ton of other merger acquisitions, and even Stratasys. I think it was. What did they do? They sold off a section. Let's see. Let me take a look here. Yeah, so Stratasys, I thought it was an interesting move, but they had a Texas-based metal printing service, a fairly large one, and they sold it off. I forget the name of the company they sold it to, but on that service side, they sold it off, and I guess they're just going to concentrate on printers, on equipment, and making and selling equipment. Yeah, so there's going to be some interesting moves coming up in 2024, and hopefully some of them will start going towards industry standards and open source instead of all this proprietary stuff, because that's just going to slow down progress, if you ask me. There's a lot of standard software, even on the machining side. If you look at CNC milling and everything, sure, there's a lot of software out there that you can standardize on within your company, and it's well-known software. There's nothing proprietary about a lot of the stuff they use. I mean, I think that's what needs to happen, instead of so much proprietary stuff coming out. When you think about it, it's like some of these major manufacturers in the industry, if they're adopting a lot of this machinery, it was slow, because why would they just go out and dump hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on new equipment when when technology is still moving fast. They're changing I guess they're changing some of their technology to stay a step ahead of each other. Well, if it's moving that fast, how quick are those machines and printers going to be obsolete within a few years? I mean, are these big manufacturers, if they adopt all this machinery, are they going to see a return on their investment, an ROI, before that machine goes obsolete, right? And I guess an example is in the dental stuff, right? I've seen some company that, and it's a great business. I mean, when you start looking at the stuff they're doing, as far as, with the, bridges and whatnot, all the stuff they're, it's really helping the dental industry. And I started looking into it myself, but I started looking at some of the equipment, and a lot of the filament was, how do you say, I guess it has to be approved by the FDA, so everybody in that, they're focusing on, proprietary filament again. And some of their machines, I guess their first and second generation were adopted in the dental arena, and all of a sudden they come out with this third generation and everything else went obsolete. Now they're going to have to, come back and reinvest in all these printers and to use this new filament that's supposed to be badass, right? Well, that's what's happening. It's like, man, it ends up being a very, very capital intensive, investment that you're going to really, really have to see a return on the investment before you make, the decision. And so hopefully that's going to catch up. I mean, a lot of these printer and machine manufacturers, they really need to concentrate on, instead of not just their own profitability and quarterly revenues and year-over-year performance, they really need to look at their customers and figure out, okay, what can we do to offer them this equipment so that they will have an ROI and a sustainable, economically sustainable solutions, right? And then on top of that, the same for themselves. But that's my opinion. I mean, but just, it's interesting to follow and see what's going on on the industrial side. Yeah, so I think there's going to be a lot more of this consolidating going through in 2024. So we'll see a lot of these companies continue with their merger acquisition talks and, hostile takeovers or whatever you want to call it. But I think we'll see a lot more of that coming up in 2024. And that being said, another change I think is going to happen is between, like I'm saying, that there's the hobbyist side and there's the industrial side. And this whole middle section, it could be the prosumer or the maker, or, there's this whole middle ground. And I think that needs to be taken some focus on. I think a lot of these hobbyist machines, they're moving along and they're starting to hit that prosumer side. They're really, really high end, but they're still desktop. They still take up a smaller footprint than the industrial side. And they've come out with a lot of new technologies, and these things like the Bamboo Lab is another example again. That you really, really get some really good quality prints, and you can use a lot of the latest engineered filaments that are out there. And on the other side, the industrial machines, instead of making these huge machines all the time, I think a few companies need to focus down and scale it down to that smaller footprint arena, more of a desktop or office machine. And going towards that same level, maybe not having overlapping, but somewhere in there where they're hitting the prosumer level, the smaller industrial. And I think that would be a big hit, a huge hit. And I think once all these additive manufacturing with metals, if they can get it all that down to that prosumer level, that prosumer side, so that you don't have such a huge footprint, but you're still able to do metals, oh, that would be huge. I mean, after all these, PLAs and PETGs, all the, and even the nylons, the carbon fiber nylons, well, how much more filament really can you use? There are a lot of products that are starting to be made, specifically, from 3D, using these filaments and stuff. And I do the same. I have a couple of products that I print off myself, quite a few products actually. But man, if I could do that with metal, that would open so many doors for me as, with the job shop. But just think about all these other larger manufacturers. They would be, taking them left and right. But so I think that's a market that we'll probably see a focus on. And even with CNC mills and CNC routers, you already see those smaller footprint stuff. Some of them are crap, I have to say. But I've seen a couple of companies that are reaching that mid-level, and I was like, ooh, that's the sweet spot. And but that's just my opinion again. But there's a few other changes I think is going to happen. Let's see. Let me take a look at my notes. Yeah, and I guess I'd like to say something about some of the larger companies that are offering their services, like Xometry is a great example. And you can go and apply and be one of their manufacturers, one of the vendors. But with them, with 3D printing, this is just an example. Not all of them do this. But Xometry, they have a list of printers. If you don't have this printer, then you're not going to get any business, right? And that's a bad move, because I've seen their list, and it's like they are not keeping up with the latest and greatest stuff. There's a lot of other printers that can do the same, and unless you're investing 100,000 plus in these machines, you can't be a partner with them. Well, you're keeping a lot of business out from a lot of small and medium manufacturers because of that. And they need to step it up and keep track of the latest and greatest printers, and for qualification and certification purposes, for their potential manufacturers, right? And on the other side, if these companies don't do some kind of qualification or certification so that you could be one of their partner manufacturers, well, you have a lot of guys out there that it's just a hobby for them, right? They're really inexperienced. They might not be engineers, but they have a badass printer, right? So, you gotta look at it that way too. I mean, they're protecting themselves and whatnot, but so I think there's going to be a lot of, I guess it boils down to, there's going to be a lot of training going on. If you're keeping it as a hobby and you're making little lamps and, little toys and stuff, well, that's fine. I hope you enjoy it, and good luck to you. It's a lot of fun. But if you're going to step up and try to make prototypes or short run production or anything for anybody, make sure that you educate yourself, and there are ways to take some classes and get certified for this and that. Go that direction. So I think there's going to be a boom in the education field for, both CAD stuff and additive manufacturing. Yeah, so I think we'll see some interesting changes in 2024. I just picked some highlights of what I think is going to happen, and whether I'm right or wrong, this is all my opinion, the way I'm looking forward. But whichever way it goes, I mean, 2024 is going to be great. I think 2024 is going to be a great year. And that being said, I guess that is it for this video. So, as always, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and watch from the next video.